Have you ever listened to a song and thought, how did they make that sound? Or how did they get the mix to sound so clean? And when you try to do the same for your track, it just sounds flat. That feeling is one of the most frustrating things in music production because the answer is right there in the track. You just don't have a system for pulling it apart. In this video, I'll show you my entire process for reverse engineering tracks so you can start applying their techniques to your own productions. I'll even share my favorite tricks like stealing and designing sounds from your favorite tracks, mixing your track to match the reference, and more. So let's get into it. So just a quick disclaimer before we start. When you're using the techniques we're about to cover, never expect to just perfectly recreate the sounds or techniques your favorite artists uses. The purpose of this is to understand the artist's decisions, why they do specific things, what instruments they use, the arrangement, and everything else that makes up a professional song. So now let's do some production. All right, the first thing we want to get into is of course choosing a reference, right? So what you can do is just go through your Spotify playlist or your SoundCloud playlist, whatever you use. And if this is your first time recreating a track by another producer, then I would recommend you choose something a lot more simple. Don't choose a crazy complex like dubstep track, for example. Maybe choose some simple house. That's what we'll be doing with this track right here. It's by Kirby and Sarah DeWarren. Hopefully I pronounced that right. This will be our reference track for today. So anyway, I've downloaded it and we can go ahead and drag this into our DAW. And I won't play too much of the track so I don't get copyright striked, but first thing we want to do is match the BPM of our track to our project tempo. Now, we can do that by going to the very first transient of the track, and we can cut out this little fade in right here. This is just an intro, and put this at the very beginning of our playlist. And I'll try and be as precise as possible. Right about there is good. And I'm guessing this is around like 130 BPM because it's house. It feels a little bit faster than classic 128. I know this feel you, so tonight. And then we can know if it's actually on beat by just going to the drop and then looking at where each kick hits. So for example, if you can see each kick transient hitting on the line, then it's on beat. And it actually looks like I got it on beat the first try. That was just by luck. Let's see. We can enable the metronome, make sure. Yeah, sounds perfectly on beat. And now that we've chosen our reference track, the next thing we want to do is map out the arrangement. Now, how do we do this? My favorite way is to just use the FL patterns or Ableton patterns, lay them out, and then rename them according to the section in the reference track. So for example, we can name this intro, we can give it a color, and then drag this out to where it matches that section. So right around here is where the vocals start. This would actually be considered the verse here. So the intro only lasts about 8 bars. Oh, and by the way, if you're wondering what a bar is, you can see that by going to the magnet here, selecting bar, and it's just one of these little sections right here. So this is a bar, this is a bar, this is 4 bars, etc. Very simple. So I'll make another pattern here. And the reason we're doing this is because it'll help you understand arrangement so much better if you're just starting out. And also if you're intermediate and advanced, they can show you what other producers like to do, what decisions they make. Now this song is a bit interesting because usually your verse would last about 8 bars, like this long, right? And then it would go into the pre-chorus. But we have an extra like 4 bars of just the vocal repeating. And then the pre-chorus kicks in. So we could probably just extend this out to here just to cover that extra 4 bars. Then I'll make another one for the pre-chorus, which is right here. And in EDM, usually the pre-chorus is the same as the build-up. They're kind of a combination. At least that's typically what you hear in a lot of songs. So it's building up. And then it drops here. So I'll name this drop. We can drag this out to where it matches the section. So it looks like this drop is about 16 bars long here. And then this little section right here where it still has some of the instruments of the drop, but it hasn't fully gone into the next major section. We could call this drop outro. And then, of course, it goes back into the verse, and it should just follow the same structure here. So the verse, the pre-chorus, looks like we have an extra 8 bars in the track, which has completely different vocals that we haven't heard before. So for now, I might just extend this here. And then of course we have the drop and then the drop outro. And then we have the real outro right here, like the complete ending of the track. So It's probably not necessary, but we can name this outro. And there we go. Now we've mapped out the entire arrangement of the track. Now, once again, the reason we do this is because we want to understand how the producer arranged it, so then maybe we can implement that stuff into our own tracks later on. For example, this extra little 4 bars right here, where the vocals just echo out. You never typically hear this in an EDM song, and I probably wouldn't have noticed this if I didn't map out the arrangement. Now, you could take this a step further if you wanted to and map out the energy of the track. It might not be totally necessary, but it could help if you're just starting out with production. So I would go into a random mixer, add some random plugin, and then create an automation clip on a random parameter that doesn't matter and that won't affect your track. And then you can use this automation here to map out the energy of the track. So for example, in the intro, there's very low energy here because it's just starting out. And when we get into the verse, it kind of picks up a little bit. So the track is developing. And this extra 4 bars, it kind of drops down for a bit. It just fades out. And then the energy kicks back up a little bit more. And it starts building up here. So it starts building up here, and then we have this little fill where the tension drops for a bit, and then full energy just kicks in right around the drop. So again, this isn't totally necessary. You don't have to do this, but if you're just starting out, it can help you identify what sections have the most energy and vice versa. Anyway, let's get into the production. Now, what we want to do is select just the drop section or the main section of the song. And this is what we want to focus on for most of the time, because usually the verse and the pre-chorus and all of that stuff are more simple, and the drop is like the main section of the song. Let's begin by recreating some of the sounds in the track. Let's do the drums first. Now we could go through the sample library here and just try and find one that sounds similar, but you're gonna have a lot of trouble going through all of these kicks. So I'm gonna show you how to steal a kick directly from a track. What we'll do is I'll cut out this section of the kick right here, and we can make this its own track. Then once we have this, we want to route this to its own mixer track. We'll apply an EQ. And now let's do a low pass that cuts out like 200 Hertz and below. We'll go ahead and render this out. I'll make sure enable insert effects is selected. So that was the bass. Now we can do the mids. Let's put this up 200 Hertz up to 2500. Around there is fine. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'll go ahead and render that out. And then finally we can do the highs. So from 2500 and above. Let's render that out. And now we have each main frequency section of the kick. We have the bass, we have the mids, and the highs. Now we can begin using fade outs to restructure the kick. So for example, right around there, I can see the actual bass, like the bass instrument coming through. I'll fade that out. On the mids, I can actually see the synth popping through here. So I'll go ahead and cut that out and just fade it. We want to try and get as much of the waveform as possible without the rest of the instruments popping through, only the kick. And then on the highs, the same thing. So I'll cut out that little synth. And now if we play all of these together, we pretty much have the same exact kick from the reference. So there we go. And what I would do now is apply each one of these to its own mixer track. So I'll do that right here. And we can EQ and process all of these individually. So for example, if you wanted more mids on a certain frequency range, we could boost that or reduce it. It's up to you. Same with the highs. Because the reference track I used is like a low quality MP3, it's actually cutting some of that treble right there. So what I'll do to the highs is add a plugin called Texture. This basically adds white noise to your sounds, just to make up for some of those missing highs. Now, as you can see, they're added back. And then what I would do from here is use all of these stems and consolidate them as one kick. So there we go. And now I'll just take this kick and we can place it 4 on the floor, just like a reference. So we have the kick. What about the clap? Claps are a little bit harder to take from a reference. Usually I would just find something that sounds similar to it. So we could look in the sample library. I feel like this clap is pretty similar. We could probably just EQ it. So I'm hearing a little bit more vowel, like the mids. We could probably remove some of that. So far, so good. And don't overwhelm yourself with recreating all of the sounds at once. Go by category. So obviously we're starting with the drums. Next we'll move on to the synths. Then we'll tackle the basses, etc. I think we could probably move on to the main synth actually, just so this doesn't get boring. So that main synth, let's listen to it. First thing is I'll recreate the notes that I hear. I think that's a B, and it's just playing in quarter notes. And then it gets raised up to a C sharp. Then that repeats, and then it goes down. And then it just repeats again. Super simple melody. Let me place this in the synths category, and we can try and remake the sound. So it's this like very plucky, mid-heavy sound. Let me take a saw and give this a little bit of unison, and I'll detune it slightly less. And I'll take the filter. Let's put this on low 24 because it's the harshest cut filter. And I'll put LFO1 here. And set this to envelope. I think we could also add another layer that's an octave down just for some more foundation. I think that's what I hear in the reference. And let me also modulate the levels of each of these so there's more control. I'll get some compression on here. An EQ to boost some of the mids. I hear the mids especially boosted in the reference track. We can give it some delay. And a bit of reverb to space it out. So we have the foundation of the sound. It's not totally accurate yet. What I want to do is let's go ahead and separate the stems of this track. So I'll separate all the instruments, and now we can solo the instruments. And we can get a better idea of what it sounds like. And we can also look at this on a spectrogram. Sometimes this can help us get a more accurate result. So I just like to compare the original with our version. It definitely needs some more texture to it. Let me go ahead and add a convolver. There's also a little bit of natural movement in the filter, I think, where it slightly opens up at certain points and then it closes back down. I'll turn up the smooth here, and then we can adjust these points. And we can also look at this on span. As you can see, we're missing some of those higher mid frequencies around 2000 hertz. Right here. Our sound is lacking that, so how can we add that? I wonder if I opened up the filter more, so low 12 instead of low 24, and then I filtered it afterwards instead. Okay, I think that's a little bit closer. Let me go ahead and sidechain the sound. And we can mix it from here. And maybe I'll add one more layer to it. So I'll go back to the reference. It sounds like there's some little detune saw layer or something. Just using the convolve again to get a unique texture. Okay, I think that's decent for now. We can always come back to it later. I'll go ahead and just add a bit more saturation to the entire sound. And we can add this into our track. Let's see what it sounds like with the drums. Now, quick note on the drums, if we actually look at the kick here, now that we've separated the stems, probably should have done that earlier, we can see the kick doubles right here. And actually, we probably could have sampled the kick just by separating the stems. Only thing is, it's a little bit lossy, so you lose some of that quality. We can even take the clap now, just directly from the track, and I could add that to my sample library if I wanted to. So let me add the double kick. And then the kick cuts out right there. Now let's move on to the bass. Let's do the sub bass first. My favorite way to do the sub is to have a triangle wave, give this some distortion, and then use the post filter to round it off. Now the thing is, this is like a plucky bass in the track. If we listen to it, the bass has a little bit of rhythm to it, so it might be best to add some dynamics, either by using a filter and then modulating this as an envelope. So it like plucks down. Either that, or we can just use the envelope right here to control the volume. We'll probably come back to this later, but for now, I'll just add some dynamics here. And now let's go ahead and get the notes right. So I think it's going. So that's a C. And by the way, if you struggle to find the notes of your reference, you should be able to look up the reference's title and then chords online, and it'll show you. Oh, that's C sharp. Then it goes up. Then up to G sharp. Let's see what the rest of the notes are. Dun, dun, dun. So there we go. Let's hear this with the kick, clap, and synth. So pretty decent. I think the bass could use some work. It doesn't sound exactly like the one in the reference. Maybe we can round it off here more with the filter. And also just give it more dynamics, make it more plucky. I think that sounds pretty good. And we can listen to the bass stem as well. So once again, this stem separation isn't exactly accurate, so you got to be careful of that. But it does sound like the bass is a bit more plucky here and has some more harmonics. Let's see what we can do. A bit more distortion, and then maybe we can make a separate like mid layer. Not sure if the actual track has this, but we can try. Sometimes you think you hear a sound and it's not actually there, but let's see. I'll use the saw wave. Let's give this a filter and put this on low 24 again. Now I want this to be a mid layer and not clash with the sub, so I'm going to cut the sub out of this. Give this some distortion. Maybe another filter. I'll just play around with different processing here. That should work. Maybe if we just level it down very quietly. And then again, I'll cut the sub from here just in case. And one more small detail, it looks like the bass is actually completely cut from this part right here, this note. Let the kick pop through. And that might just be the sidechain, but we could probably do that here for each of these, or just like use Shaperbox to do it. So just completely cut out this whole note. That gives it more groove as well. Let's hear it with the synth. Sounds pretty accurate so far. Now in the background of the instruments, or the synths, I hear this little gated pad in the background going dun 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 or something like that. We can try and remake that. Very quiet, but we can try and remake it here. We're gonna have to listen very closely. I think I hear it going dun 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 dun. This is gonna be very tedious. Just gonna keep chipping away at this. And again, the purpose of this isn't to get it perfect. We can try and get it as accurately as possible, but unless we can look into the producer's project, there's going to be little nuances that we're missing. That's okay. The purpose of this is to just understand their decision making and how we can implement it into our own projects. Just trying to get this last chord here. Something like that. Sweet, now we can try and recreate the sounds. And one trick is to find different places in the song that might not have other instruments overlaying it. So around this point, I can hear the saw or the chord in the background a little bit better. So it's easier for me to understand how I would make the sound. It just kind of sounds like a low-passed saw, some sort of texture to it. It's hard to tell. Put out a little bit of muddiness there. Fill up some space with some reverb and delay. Let's see what this sounds like with the rest of the instruments. So sounds decently accurate. Of course, the reference sounds a lot more big, but we could probably achieve that through some processing. And of course, this is a mastered track, but I think that's pretty good. Let me go ahead and copy this over to the next section and we can see what drums they're using here. Okay, so it's just like hi-hats. So those are pretty simple. We can go ahead and find some bright hi-hats. And then I hear the small hi-hat under all of them, just going like this. By the way, this is a little trick. If you go to the settings here in the sampler, this is a low-pass filter, so you can just easily tuck samples into the background more. So like this hi-hat is a little bit too bright. What I can do is just go to the settings, turn this down a little bit. There we go. So let's compare what we got to the reference track so far. Alright, now that we have a decent version of the drop, if we wanted to, we could go back to the other sections and start building these. So for example, in the beginning of this track, we have the lead, which fades in slowly. So we could start to fade that in. I'll use a low pass here. Let's just slowly fade this in. And a lot of producers, once they remake the drop, they might not go back to the other sections because they're just not as important, which I understand, but I would try to at least make like the verse or something. In the background of this verse, we have the hi-hats going, but they have a filter on them because they're very like in the background. So we can enable that here. There's also a bass. Like a simple choppy bass. I think we made one earlier. could probably use this. Let me go ahead and duplicate the serum so we can edit it. I'll make a new pattern, paste the bass line in. Maybe we raise it up an octave. Is that what I hear in the reference?
I know this feeling, pick me up when I get.
Yeah, it is up an octave. We got the vocals playing here as well. I accidentally only separated the vocal stem at the drop part here, so we don't have access to the vocals right now. And then that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not too much important stuff that we need to cover for the rest of the sections. The main thing is just recreating that drop and at least understanding how he put together some of the sounds. What I would do from here is actually save the sounds that I remade and put them in my own sample pack. And I would even just export the kick and the clap into my own sample pack if these sounds truly resonated with me, so that way I could use them later. But doing all of this is such a good exercise. I can't tell you how many times I've done this, and every single time I learn something new or I have a new tool in my toolkit that I can use for other projects later down the line. Now, one more quick tip. What we could do is go to the master track and then apply span. If you really wanted to get in depth with the mix, you could look at this, listen to your version of the track. And then we can listen to the reference, of course, and compare the two. One thing I noticed about the synth, in the reference track, it does feel a bit more open. That might just be something with the filter. I think that's a little bit more accurate now. Compared to this. And by the way, if you're sick of being stuck in the 8-bar loop and you just can't seem to finish tracks, and you've been trying and trying over and over again, but nothing seems to click, and you also want help with all of the stuff we covered here, sound design, using your reference tracks properly, sound selection, mixing, and all of that stuff, check the first link in the description. I have a totally free training that will show you how to make more professional music consistently. And then if you're interested, you can book a call with me so we can speak about your music situation and help you reach your goals faster. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I really hope this helped you. After you're done watching this video, I would go and download one of your favorite tracks right now, put it into your DAW, and just try your best to map out the arrangement. Maybe take some of the drum sounds, like the kick, for example, with that technique I showed you, and even remake sounds that you can use later on in your own projects. Again, if you want to make more professional music and work one-on-one with me, please check the first link in the description. I have a free training that you can watch, and if that resonates with you, you can book a call with me. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good one. Peace.